Speaking of expanding the flow of light, Carol, thank you. It just happened within and without today. So today is going to be a little bit different. We've been working our way up to today. We spent a couple of weeks looking at how we are structured spiritually. Because many of us have forgotten that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. We are vibrational, energetic beings in this physical world of matter. And as we're learning who we truly are and who we are inside, and then last week we began to talk about how do we bring it into the physical, right? The four lower bodies. And how we begin to transmute this perfection that's within us. How does it begin to manifest in our day-to-day, our day-to-day life? Some of you are beginning to experience the light within. Some, it's a feeling, you feel warmth. Some actually are beginning to see it. Everyone is capable of seeing it with your spiritual eyes as you open up to the possibility. It's not seeing with your physical eyes, it's seeing with your spiritual eyes. And as that light begins to expand within you, and that light is part of the truth, it's part of who we are, it's our true essence, our true nature, our true self. Right? And so this journey that we're on to, and why I say there's nothing to fix, there's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with me. Because inside we're perfectly who we always were. We just forgot. We got busy in life, quote, the physical life. What happened is we built a persona, we built a mask, because we were told that if you were good, you'd get approval. And that's what we were trained in. Well, we didn't always feel good. Then we had to put a mask on and pretend we were, otherwise we wouldn't get the approval. So as we're learning to take back who we truly are authentically, our true self, finding that inside of us is only unconditional love. I asked for a raise of hands a couple of weeks ago. How many people were raised in unconditional love? No. Because the people who taught you how to love were never loved unconditionally. They were loved conditionally. And they did the best with you and me as they could. But it wasn't unconditional, it was conditional. So that's what love is for us unless we begin to get in touch with the true unconditional love that lies within us. There is truth within us. The absolute eternal truth that never changes. But we have bought into things that aren't true. Falsehoods. We are worthy, that's a truth. You are worthy, I am worthy of having it all. We were not taught that, we were taught something else. And as we begin to deal with the untruths and release them and begin to deal with the hurts and the wounds from conditional love, we begin to find out who we truly are. And that starts with this light within us, which is known as the Christ light or the Buddha light or Krishna light or consciousness. It doesn't matter what words you put to it, but within all human beings is this light. In the moment of transition, the light disappears. It goes back to source. And we drop this old coat, the physical part. Right? As we get connected with that light, the light leads the love. And as we get more and more connected with, and you can call it life force, you can call it divine energy, you can call it whatever words you want to put to it, I see and feel it as light. It lights up inside. And as we do some of these decrees that light up your cells and go to the subatomic level, you're going to begin to experience your cells actually lighting up. When I studied in Qigong, They do a practice in Qigong. It's called smiling to yourselves. It's a very similar exercise that we're doing, bringing light to ourselves. They light up. They respond back. There's intelligence in every one of ourselves. And as we get connected with that, it begins to start a cycle that's really powerful. Don't forget Tuesday night, 7 o'clock here in the sanctuary. Tuesday night, I'm going to finish what we're doing today. There's not enough time. And I'm going to actually finish the whole energy work that will take you to a different place than you probably ever have been before energetically. So if you're willing to open your mind and you're trying something different today, I think you're going to leave different, number one. You're going to leave feeling completely different inside. The only way I know to describe it is I tell people it feels like you move some furniture around. You know when you move furniture around your room and then you come in at night and the chair's not where, that's kind of how it feels. Because we have taken on a density in our energetic bodies and our 4 lower bodies that is not ours. And as we begin to release it through practice like this, I think you're going to see some changes. I keep bringing this back up because I want you to consider life is a sacred adventure. It's not I go to work 8 to 5 and I die when I'm 80. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an eternal life. We're talking about a life of incredible beauty and harmony and balance and love. Unconditional love. Peace and joy. And it's available 24/7 for each of us. Because one thing I know about the divine does not pick and choose special people. If he makes someone special, we're all special. I had a conversation this week with someone about, yeah, you're worthy. You are made of exactly the same stuff Jesus, Buddha, Krishna was. You're no different than they. They just woke up to who they were. You know, people say, well, I want to become enlightened. I got news for you. You already are. You just forgot. You're already awake, part of you. You just forgot. We're not spending the time in our awakened, enlightened self. We're spending our time over here in the muck, believing that we're not worthy of it all. We're only good enough for this much. No, it's not true. And the biggest lie that was ever put on the human psyche is that you and I were born a sinner. That's a lie. An all-good God would never create his greatest creation with sin. And if you believe as I do, there's no sin, there's no guilt, and there's no blame, and there's no shame. Only that you're dealing with is the stuff you still are holding on to by not remembering who you truly are. We talked about last week, there's 2 worlds. There's the one that you can choose to suffer or you can live in grace. You can choose to struggle or be in ease or turmoil and peace or darkness and light. You and I get to choose that. Because behind all of this is perfection. Is the divine light. Available to every one of us all the time. But we can choose to stay on the other side. And I don't know about you, but I chose that for most of my life. Part of it was out of ignorance. I didn't know any better. Part of it was because I bought into the lies that I was taught. That I wasn't worthy enough. It's not true. You and I are worthy of it all. So as we're becoming more and more aware of our spiritual self, what begins to happen is we have greater harmony in our life. We're seeing good things happen. It only can be because the law is whatever I vibrate, whatever you vibrate to, will come back to you. And if you don't like what's coming back to you right now in your life, then change your thoughts, change your feelings, and you will manifest what you want. Never, ever have I said this is rocket science. It's not. The only thing that makes the spiritual journey complex is the human ego. From ministers and priests and spiritual teachers and gurus and swamis with names so long you can't pronounce them. Give me another $200 and I'll take you to enlightenment. That's who complexed it. God didn't create it complex. He created you and I in his essence. We could not be created in that essence and not be today, right? Sometimes I get off course. Here we are. I guess we're exactly on course. So this, why am I showing you this? This is a causal body in that chart that we've been shown. And it's the aspects coming from the divine, the energy, the rays, they call it in the book. And there's 7 of them. Guess what? They align to the 7 chakras that you have within your body. Why is that important? Because it's the first time we've had explanation. How do we take what comes from the divine and have it flow through us into our 4 lower bodies? I've never found another teaching that teaches this as clearly as this does. And now you're going to see in your books, and I've had some comments this week, well, the chakra system they teach in here is not the same one I was taught. You were probably taught the Indian version or the yogic version of chakras, starting with red going to white. This is different from that. It was different in the way it was presented to Mark Prophet, 50 years ago, in that it more aligns with the aspects that are coming from God. But the easiest way to remember it is the first 3, power, wisdom, and love, are connected and in alignment with the threefold flame that we've talked about within your heart. That's how the major energy flows, and you may not ever want to go beyond that, and that's okay. If you get that, that's enough. It will completely change your life for the rest of your life. If you get connected with the divine that's flowing through your heart space, bringing you divine, think about it for a minute. If you were connected every day right now, and you went to work, and you lived, and you met your family and friends, and you were living in complete and total divine power, divine wisdom, and divine love, do you need much more? That'd be a pretty good place to live from. Some people might call it heaven on earth. Right? But this expands it even further. And the other one to remember is the 7th ray, is the violet ray, which is why we use the violet decrees. It's the most powerful spiritual energy that releases the stuff of the human. And that's why I introduced this now maybe 15 weeks ago. And we continue to do it, at least one of them every Sunday. I would hope that you find one that connects with you and you use it in your morning practice. It will change your life. It's the strongest, most powerful, spiritual, transformative energy that I've been able to find anywhere in the world. It's why I teach it, it's why I use it. This is a picture of your threefold flame in your heart. This is where the divine energy enters you, at your heart space. Comes down and in your heart space. And if that's the only place you go, and begin to meditate there and begin to stay there, and remember what it said way back 6,000 years ago with King David, be still and know that I am God. Go here and do that. That's all you need to do, quite honestly. Get out of your head and get to your heart space and experience the divine energy as it's flowing through. And for some of you, that's enough, and that's okay. Because you will find in this journey what's right for you. I have no right answers for you. I can only show you what's available and what I have found to work for me. You have to pick and choose what works for you. But this is typical, what you've seen many times, those of you especially have been in yoga and the 7 chakras, going from the base chakra to the crown. What's different in this practice is we begin to spiral the energy in the chakras. And if you think about anything in the universe, galaxies and pictures you've seen of cells and atoms and electrons, everything's moving, number one, and everything spirals. There's hardly anything in the world that actually, except in the physical, that goes straight. It spirals the energy. And this is built on that notion, and that's why I say, to me, it's one of the most powerful things. So chakras lie in, remember last week we talked about the 4 lower bodies. The etheric body is the highest vibration, right? And the chakras lie there. You can't touch them and feel them. You can only experience them Or if you've developed a spiritual sight to be able to see them, some people do and some people see colors with it. That's why you have the different aspects of color charts. Some people see it differently as other people. There is photography now available that you can photograph this. You can photograph the energy around the chakras. You can photograph the energy in the auras. Again, what I found though with those, depending who does what with what photography, they can have different colors. So I wouldn't get hung up on the details. Just know that you're emanating this, and we've talked about that. You and I have experienced many times in our lives going into a room and someone never even said a word and we're like, whoa, I don't want to get too involved there. That's the energy that's coming from them out of what we're now talking in much more detail. Or where you see someone, it's like, man, there's an instant connection. You see light around them, they're cheerful, they're joyful. It's like, I want to spend time with that person. That's where this is coming from. So chakra is a word coming from the Sanskrit that means a wheel or disc of energy. And the energy comes into us and then is transmuted into the four lower bodies. Anyone who's ever seen an acupuncture chart of the meridians, that's where this comes from. They aren't physical, they're energetic channels that you attach, whether it's through pressure or through needles, that open up the channel of energy flowing through. That's a rendition of this. It's a way that we distribute within us energetically the life force coming through us. And that's about as simple as I can make it. I don't think you have to get any more complex, unless you want to. And there's all kinds of YouTube and stuff on the internet that you can go deeper if you'd like, and books. Ledbetter said this: when quite undeveloped, the chakras appear as small circles about 2 inches in diameter, glowing dully in the ordinary person. This is kind of how you and I function until we become aware. And as we begin to do the meditation, as we begin to do what we have to always do spiritually, is we have to recognize and acknowledge that it's there, and we begin to put focus. Remember what happens with our focus. Our focus brings energy. Attention brings energy. As we begin to focus on this system, it begins to build. But when awakened and vivified, they are seen as blazing light emanating whirlpools, much increased in size and resembling miniature suns. So they begin to spiral and they begin to collate back and forth, and the energy gets bigger and bigger. And that's part of why you'll meet some people and their aura, their energy coming from them is big. It seems bigger to you. It feels bigger. It is. Versus someone who hasn't done this work and they're very dull, they're very small, and they're just locked down. They barely move. Now people will say, I've heard this said by certain healers, is like, well, you've got one of your chakras closed off. No chakra gets closed off. If they did, you start to die. It's part of how the system shuts down. So you don't have any chakras closed down, but you have some chakras that may be full of a bunch of gunk. And I'm going to look at that in a minute, how that can happen. Here it is. So you can see here what happens on the one side, starting at the very bottom of your base chakra. If you're someone who's dealing with fear, you're not safe and secure, you're feeling fear and anxiety about the future, whatever it might, this is coming out of that base chakra. The next one up is guilt. We can be guilty for many things that aren't ours to be guilty of. And if we're holding that guilt, and I'm not talking now at a conscious level, I'm talking subconsciously. Because remember, out of that etheric memory body comes the cause to what we feel in our lives. And the next one up is shame and grief and lies and illusions and ego attachment. And you can see that these chakras basically can get shut down if we get involved in a lot of this stuff. And most of this stuff, most of the human suffering will come from things of the past. We don't suffer from the future because it didn't happen yet. We don't suffer in the here and now because it's perfect. So if you have any of these on this side shutting down part of your energy flow, it's something you're bringing from your past and you're bringing into the moment. and making it here and now out of memories. Memories are nothing but thoughts, but they feel a lot more important than them. But this is a chart that gives you some guidance. It's not like, again, it's not rocket science. But if I'm feeling shame, I want to be working on my solar plexus. Why is it shut down? What's going on? Or fear, or what, grief, or whatever it might be. As you release those, and you release them on that side, and one of the ways, the secret that you and I have is it's released through the decrees of the violet fire. Because it works at subatomic levels and begins to release this that you're holding in your unconscious body, you're holding in your memory banks, you're holding in karmic debt or whatever it might be. And as you begin to open these up, the flow of energy starts to happen. And that's how you get to, if you remember, Abraham's number one was empowerment and bliss. And that's how we go. If you look and match these up a little bit, it's kind of interesting. Number 22 on Abraham's scale, the spiraling scale, was that disempowerment was at the very bottom, depression. It falls in that whole fear and guilt and shame. And as we begin to release those, the energy flows up, we begin to feel much more balance and harmony in our lives. These chakras work in pairs. So the base the number one chakra we have, or energy wheel, is our heart. That's where it comes directly into that threefold flame that I just showed. And from there it begins to spiral through your body in pairs. It goes from here to the throat, and from the throat to the solar plexus. How many of you have ever experienced anxiety or fear in your life? Where did you feel it? Throat and gut, right? It's because they're pairs. And it usually starts in here. It starts with butterflies, and then they go out of control. And the next thing you feel is constriction in the throat, right? They work in pairs. So we're going to work on that, opening that up today. So it goes from the heart to the throat to the solar plex to the third eye and the seat of the soul. And that's your mental body. And then finally the physical body is the crown and the base. So it comes from the heart and spirals this way. Now because of time today, I can't complete this whole process. But on Tuesday night, we're going to then complete the rest of the energy work and back into your heart. But today, if you just experience this spiral, I think you're going to see something change. Because most of us have never practiced this before. It's never been taught. It's not taught in yogic systems. But as you begin to match the pairs, that's where you begin to get... What happens when you match pairs and they begin to open, they become balanced, and you begin to experience more and more harmony. So we're going to look at that as we move forward. Remember I said last week, this violet fire cleansing works at subatomic levels. We talked about how it works with the nucleus and the electrons and all that and the space in between. That's why I say it's the most powerful that I have found anywhere. That's why it's what I use. And, I follow what I showed last week that St. Germain said, just try it for 30 days and see if you feel a difference. This is pretty intense. I don't know that I would... Some of you are going to grab a hold of it and want to do it for 30 days. Go for it. And it's going to be on tape. You can use that or the book. Every day, in every way, the violet flame flushes out and renews your body cells, the cells of your mind and the globe of your soul, polishing the jewel of consciousness until it glistens like a sunlight. This is the process. This is the spiritual process that takes you to clarity, that takes you to transmuting and transforming all this old stuff and allows the energy, allows the light, and allows the unconditional love to move through you at a much deeper and bigger way. You ready to do it? All right. So we're going to go through this process. I'm going to take you through it. All you have to do is, if you don't want to actually do the decrees, listen. So we're going to do the I am the being, the violet fire. That's the first one I showed you. I am the purity God desires 3 times. And then we're going to move from the heart. We'll do this again, and we'll move to the throat. And we're going to move the energy around. At the end of each chakra, when we're finished with the 3, I'm going to stop and let you breathe. Breathe into that chakra. Just be present. Be in the here and now. Let your breath take you present. Feel your heart space. Okay, here comes a thought. What am I having for lunch? It's okay, let it go. Breathe into your heart space. Right? Thoughts will come by, they're just like clouds. Let them flow. And breathe. And we'll just take a little bit in each chakra, and then we'll move to the next one. Until we completely spiral today. And we're going to go through all 7 chakras. We're going to do it in the spiraling energy of the universe. All right. Let's just take a breath or two. Some of you may find if you hold your heart, it gets you down out of your head. If not, that's fine. Do whatever lets you get centered out of the human mind, down into the heart. All right, together. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. My heart is a chakra of violet fire. My heart is the purity God desires. My heart is a chakra of the violet fire. My heart is the purity God desires. My heart is a chakra of the violet fire. My heart is the purity of God desires. Breathe into your heart chakra. If you can, see if you can find the threefold flame. Feel it, feel the warmth. Feel unconditional love. Feel truth. Feel the essence of who you are. Now we're going to begin to move into spiraling. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. My throat chakra is a wheel of violet fire. My throat chakra is the purity God desires. My throat chakra is a wheel of violet fire. My throat chakra is the purity God desires. My throat chakra is a wheel of violet fire. My throat chakra is the purity God desires. Breathe into this space. This is your power center. This is where you begin to express your personal power. This is how you set boundaries to protect who you are. This is where you use the words I am to create your future. Breathe into the power. And now we're going to move down. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. My solar plexus is a son of the violet fire. My solar plexus is the purity God desires. My solar plexus is a son of the violet fire. My solar plexus is the purity God desires. My solar plexus is a son of the violet fire. My solar plexus is purity God desires. Breathe into this solar plexus. This is the seat of your emotions. Anytime you're feeling upset, they're coming from here. Let the warmth, the violet fire, calm the sea. Let this chakra become like the mirror of the lake. No ripples, just peace. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am purity God desires. My third eye is the center of violet fire. My third eye is the purity God desires. My third eye is the center of violet fire. My third eye is the purity God desires. My third eye is the center of violet fire. My third eye is the purity God desires. This is where you begin to develop your spiritual visions. Be able to see energy, colors, opening of the spiritual eye. As Jesus said, when you make your eye single, your body will be full of light. Here's where we make our eye single. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. My soul chakra is a sphere of violet fire. My soul chakra is the purity God desires. My soul chakra is a sphere of violet fire. My soul chakra is the purity God desires. My soul chakra is a sphere of violet fire. My soul chakra is the purity God desires. It may be the first time you've gotten in touch with your soul. In this teaching, they say, see it as a sphere of mother pearl white, iridescent colors in it. This is where it sits in our bodies. And this is where you go to meditate if you want to find out your divine plan of your soul. If you ask, you will receive. Let the light in, let it spin, let it energize. Begin to move up. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am purity God desires. My crown chakra is a lotus of violet fire. My crown chakra is the purity God desires. My crown chakra is a lotus of violet fire. My crown chakra is the purity God desires. My crown chakra is a lotus of violet fire. My crown chakra is the purity God desires. They call this the 1,000-petaled lotus. Each petal receives more light, more love, more life force. And as it begins to open, it allows us to bring more and more of the divine light and love into our 4 lower bodies through this system. It's golden yellow color. It is where we feel bliss, enlightenment, attunement, awakening. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. And lastly, base chakra. My base chakra is the fount of violet fire. My base chakra is the purity God desires. My base chakra is the fount of violet fire. My base chakra is purity God desires. My base chakra is the fount of violet fire. My base chakra is the purity God desires. Bring your attention, bring your focus, bring your light here. If you're not feeling safe and secure, it's in this area. This is where you learn to trust the universe, that the universe is a good universe. And we'll end this. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of the violet fire. I am purity God desires. Om. The use of Om can be used to seal the meditation at the end. But as we're sitting here today, just see if you can feel the spiral coming out of your heart to your throat, to your solar plexus, to your third eye, to your soul chakra, to your crown chakra, to your base chakra. So, what you can do during the day, sitting in a red light, which is what I do, I just open up the spiral and breathe and do it, and it starts to flow. And the thing about this practice is that it begins to commingle all the energies. And that's what balance is. That's what harmony is when all the energy centers of your being are flowing to the golden white light and to the conditional love and to the truth. And that allows us to get to a place of balance and harmony. So if you're feeling a day where you're just out of sorts, breathe into the heart and begin to spiral the energy. Breathe back to the heart, spiral the energy. And you're going to find, I think very quickly, at least I do, within a minute or two, my whole being just settles. And I'm in alignment with Source. So give it a try. As Saint Germain says, try it for 30 days. And if it doesn't work for you, okay. But I think a lot of you will find that it's incredibly powerful. And all of this energy work I have found in my life is cumulative. The more time you spend in it, the more time you invest in it, the more attention you give to it, it begins to accumulate so that very quickly you can come back to a place of harmony and balance and go from there. So I wanted to show one last thing before we move forward. Well, actually, two more things before we finish up out of this chapter. So that's kind of what we always see in this alignment. What happens in this is, if you recognize, we ended up at the base chakra, at the very bottom, right? Well, that is the energy called the mother energy, or the omega energy. So in life, we've been told there's the alpha and the omega, the father, the mother. You see the Tai Chi ball where the yin and the yang is balanced and in harmony. Well, the way this works energetically is when we're down to the base, at the very base, there's a sphere of pure, brilliant white light. And they call that the mother energy. So you have the father energy, or the alpha, at the wisdom level, and you have this intense love at the base chakra. And as I said, alluded to a little bit, we're going to finish this where we're on Tuesday night, where we bring the mother energy and the father energy together, the alpha and the omega. And that completes this whole process. But that takes time that we don't have this morning. But like I said, this will get you to harmony and balance. But that's how you finish this process. Because as we talk, it's Father, Mother, God is what it really is. But the Bible got written by a bunch of men who decided to throw Mother out, I guess, and make men be the only thing that mattered, which we know isn't true. There was no truth in that in God, and there was no truth in that the way Jesus taught, and there was no truth in that the Buddha taught. Every one of them believed that all of us are made equal, completely equal, and that's just a bunch of bunk that was taught to all of us. So the last piece today, and we're going to do the last decree as we finish up, is this tube of light. You've seen this in the divine chart. As you expand your chakras, your tube of light expands. It expands out to about 9 feet. So, I don't know, what's that, 3 feet? Another 1.5 feet beyond me and behind me is how big it is, if you expand it to that level. What does it matter? Why is it good? This is where your safety and security comes from. You will be completely surrounded by the golden white light at all times. And it protects you no matter where you are, it protects you from other people. It protects you from negativity, will bounce right off your tube of light. And it speeds up the return. You remember, this is the universal boomerang. So when someone wants to send negativity to you, wants to judge you, or wants to criticize you, if you're in this tube of light around you, you don't get engaged in it. You don't become part of the ego entanglement or the soap opera drama. You simply have a little Buddha smile inside and go, not mine. That's your stuff. Guess where it goes? Right back to that. If you won't engage in their stuff, they own it. They get it. And you can stay completely centered, completely in a place of balance and harmony, and not get engaged in their ego attacks. That's what they are, they're ego attacks. Why do they attack you? Because they have to project their woundedness onto you. So hopefully they'll feel a little bit better. I got news for you, it doesn't work. And it never works if you learn to have your tube of light up. Now our tube of light's always there, but it could be condensed if we're not aware of it, if we're not doing the work. But as we let this flow happen, you are completely protected, and you're going to find yourself, and you're going to look at yourself and say to yourself, wow, that stuff used to trigger me all the time. It's like, whatever. It's your stuff. It's not mine. And I'm not going there. And it's a place of mastery. It's a place of personal power. And this will help you get there if you do the work. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So we've talked many times about why doing the decrees. And we're going to